I have lots of things that I love to talk about, but providing awesome care for animals in shelters in terms of their behavior is by far one of my favorites. And I know Dr. Wagner and Dr. Aziz were here talking to you guys about housing. We're going to just touch on that a little bit again because it's so important. But we're going to take it further and see how it really, how very important it is, and other things we can do on top of the housing to help the animals that come into our shelters in our care. So this is the stuff I want you guys to get out of today. And please, you guys, any questions, don't be shy. It's way more exciting for me to have a conversation with you guys. So, but we're going to talk about the 5 freedoms again, because they're really, really important and really understand what they mean. And then we're going to talk about stress, and then we're going to talk about some really fun things we can do for animals in our shelter. So, here they are, the 5 freedoms. Who knows when they were written? Does anyone know?
They should know by now.
What was that? Did I hear 60s? You'd be correct, it was 65. And they were written for farm animals, but they work pretty well for us, right? These are important things to consider, but I want to break these down into what they really mean, right? Because take the first one, okay? Freedom from hunger and thirst. Now, some shelters could say we provide fresh food and water every day, but it's fresh all the time. But is that enough? Is that enough to meet this freedom? I would say no. And there's lots of reasons for that. Like, if an animal is too stressed, does it matter if we put 6 kinds of food in front of them? No, right? If they're not comfortable in their environment, they're not going to eat. And then by their not eating, we know they lose weight, they become more susceptible to disease, and it feeds into this vicious cycle that we don't want to get our animals into. So, we do need to provide food, obviously, but we also need to provide a cage, right, for cats, that keeps their litter out of their food, right? Because would you guys find these sandwiches as appetizing if I came by and screamed a little bit of cat litter on them? No, that's gross. It is inherently disgusting, so let's not do it for our cats, right? For dogs, if they don't have a clean place where they can defecate away or pee away from their food, are they going to be as likely to eat? No. That's gross. So, those things need to be met to provide this freedom. Would you agree? So I wanted to share, this is, Sandra, have you shared this with these guys, this video?
I don't think so. It's a good one to show them.
Yay!
Have you seen this one? No, I don't think I have.
Okay, adorable, right? This was actually, Sandra and I were at a shelter, we were watching this. This is morning feeding at a shelter, and this is a whole wall, okay, of cats, okay, in cages. And this gentleman's doing his job, so you can see, but there's a black kitten in the back, can you guys see? Okay. So there's 4 kittens in this cage, okay? And he put down a fair amount of food, right, for the kittens. But he's now gone, okay? And he's on to the next cage. But we stood and watched and taped. Now, how many kittens are eating? Well, this little dude is, right, with the little smudge on his head, right? Yeah. And I think the black one in the back is. This smooch-headed kitten has not eaten. And this one looks like it's trying, right? Sniffing. But I'm not sure we've actually consumed any food. So how long have we been watching? What is this, 30 seconds? Right? Now, if this worker comes back and didn't see this and looks at the food, he'd think the kids have eaten, right, if there's food missing? But is that enough? It's not, is it? Because we don't know who ate. We don't know how much each one ate. So again, if we don't have the staffing to monitor our food consumption, are we meeting this freedom? No, right? We're providing the food, but we're not ensuring that the cat's other needs are met so that they're eating the food. How much you want to bet this poor little thing is probably going to be blowing snot bird within the next upstairs too. Oh, so cute. So cute. So something to think about, just providing food and water doesn't meet this freedom, right? So we need monitoring. We need to have the staff to monitor, to have the time, right? Like, do you have enough staff per animal that each one not only has time to give the food and water, but has the time to watch, right? And see what happens, and then has time to record. So we have a history for each animal. Same for our dogs, right? Again, we want to, going back to the double-sided housing, we want to give them a place where their food and water is away from their side to defecate. I did take that picture of that dog in the shelter. I just think it's so cute. He had been getting his morning breakfast. He just was letting everyone know he thought he should have a little bit more. And then what about this? What if we create this situation? Have we met this dog's freedom of freedom from hunger and thirst? Do you think this dog ever eats? Ever? So there could be 6 bowls of food in this kennel, but do you think he's ever going to get anywhere near it? No. So we don't want to see that, right? Sandra, have you talked to him about this program?
No.
This is how one shelter met this need for their dog. This is down in Florida. And they still are doing this. It's pretty awesome. Every day between 2 and 3, they actually shut their dog kennels down to the public. Okay? But they have a sign that says, come in, we're still open, come visit our cats. You just don't get to see the dogs for this hour. Because what they were finding is their dogs, not everyone was eating, and there's such a large shelter that many times the dogs have to be co-housed. And so they had a high disease rate, animals were losing weight, and they're short-staffed. It's a municipal shelter, so they're like, you know what? We're going to give everyone an hour to relax in the afternoon. So dogs get fed between 2 and 3. If there's multiple animals, they separate them. They close the transfer door, the guillotine door, and have a dog on each side. And everyone gets fed. And if someone's not eating, they get flagged. So then they try another type of food. And wellness hour doesn't, the lights go down, there's soft music. It's a relaxing time for everyone, staff included. And wellness hour doesn't end until every warning flag that this dog hasn't eaten has been addressed. Pretty awesome, right? So it's taking, they don't have to feed in the morning now. They can use that time for something else. And now it's something that the dogs and the staff can look forward to every hour. So is this Orange County?
Mm-hmm. Orange County,
Florida. Not to be confused with Orange County, California. But go on their website and you'll see it still says that they are closed because they found that this has worked so well to make sure everyone gets to eat and addresses this particular freedom for these animals. Pretty cool, huh? All right, any questions about that one? What's up?
Hi.
Hello.
So I can see how that can work for dogs.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty common to co-house cats.
Yeah,
Has anybody come up with any creative solutions to figure out to see if
to do
that's
with cats. I think the key to cats, you were just talking about this, is number of cats that you put together. There's no way to do it if you put 10 to 12 cats together, right? Or more. Some shelters do even more, right? You can't, right? Like even if you put down 20 bowls of food. So I think the key is that you limit it to about 3 to 4 cats. Also, a really important thing, you guys, for cats, and this is cats even singly housed, is to weigh them. Cats need to be weighed weekly. I know that sounds crazy. You're like, okay, there's no way my staff has the time to do this. But I work with a shelter in California, and they have volunteers come in. They have a cart, and on the cart is a scale, a baby scale, and a calculator, and a log. And every cat gets weighed every single week. The volunteers just go around with the cart. And they thought they'd never get volunteers to do this, but the volunteers love it because it's a job, right? And it's shown to make a difference. Their URI rate has plummeted because they catch it right away, right, if animals aren't eating. So weighing the cats every week is really, really important, and that'll help let you know who's eating and who's not. And so for the weighing program, any cat that gains or loses 10% of their body weight, hence the calculator, is flagged for the vet to look at. And then she takes a look at them and comes up with a plan. And so it's trying to find disease early. So, and now, guess which way most of the cats' weights are going? Yeah. They're not having a problem with cats losing weight in their shelter. but rather gaining weight, so they've had to look at some exercise programs for their cats. So does that help?
Yeah.
So it really becomes a matter of number of cats together and then weight. Really, really helpful. Okay, good. Ready for number 2? Freedom from discomfort. Okay, that's kind of a big, broad term, right? Some of you might say, vet school makes me pretty uncomfortable. Okay, fine. But let's do what we can to make ourselves as happy as we can while we're here, right? So we want to give cats nice, like, is this cat comfortable? Can we provide comfort to a cat in that type of housing, right? Air quality, something we need to think about. A decent sized litter box, who wants to use a small toilet. And we need, again, comfort, having good food that's not contaminated with litter. So here we go. Let's think about our typical cat cage, right? Our 2x2s, how many shelters have these? Most, right? So we want to give them a litter box that's big enough for a large cat behind. We're going to provide food and water, right? And now we still need the cat, right? Can this cat do anything remotely that makes them comfortable? Whose cat likes to do this? This is my cat. This is my cat, Blue. Yes, he's stretched out in front of the fireplace in California. His life is rough. Can that cat do this? Could my cat do this in an empty cage? No. So I would say by design flaw, the cages we provide most cats do not allow a cat to be comfortable. They just don't. So you guys learned all about this, didn't you? The awesome cage study, right? Super excited for it to be published because this to me just it speaks volumes, right? Like cats in our small cages, the cage we just talked about, cats never got to be relaxed, right? So a score of 3 is considered relaxed on this stress scoring that they use. Look at that, after a week, the cats who had to live in the small cages never were relaxed. After a week. Day 2, the cats who had a separate bathroom have already hit, they're already below 3. Awesome. So, we need to stop putting cats in small metal boxes. Or we will never accomplish freedom number 2. Would you agree? Okay. So, and remember, this is my favorite math ever. We can still help just as many cats. We have half as many housing units, so we give each cat twice as much. We half the number of time we have to care for them, and we still help the same number of cats. Simple, simple math. All right. So, just some more ideas of housing. We have to give these guys bigger housing units. That's just all there is to it. I'm not actually going to accept any other reasoning behind that one, because we cannot achieve this freedom. So, love the portal. If I could just talk about portals for ever, I think I could solve so many problems. So, portals save lives, and that's. Have you guys gotten to see them? You all saw them at Dane County, the portals. They're awesome. Cats need a soft bed. Cats love their soft beds, so make sure they have room. And so I was talking to a shelter the other day, who they're working really hard to put in portals. And so one of the staff members asked a question. She's like, I continue to get in fights with my coworkers about where to put the bed. Because they all want to put these big fluffy beds in. And then I'm like, okay, well if you put the big fluffy beds in, the cat has no room. And I was like, you've just proven the point, right? Like, you've created a situation that doesn't have an answer. So, you need a portal. You need a bigger cage. Because you're both right. Like, there isn't room for the big fluffy bed, but the cat needs the big fluffy bed. And you can't solve it with the housing unit that you have. So what do you need to do? You need to change the housing unit, right? So, let that be the argument of why you need the good housing, because we need to give cats these things and we can't in the housing that we have. So, litter boxes. How many of you guys have seen like some of the just weirdest litter boxes ever in shelters? Like I was at a place and they used takeout containers, you know, like the flip top styrofoam. How many cats do you know whose little bump will fit in that? Like no, whose cat wants to use that? And then like this, like yay, he has a shelf, but he can't sit right. So not only do we need to give them a proper sized litter box to fit their behind, we have to put it in a place. They have to have space, right, to be able to use it properly. So we don't want to see this either in our shelters. Did Dr. Rager talk about her elimination study? Come on, okay. This to me is just like, how can you not love shelter medicine? We get to go around and look at where animals poop. It's awesome. And let that improve their welfare. Like how cool is that, right? So, if we want to make a dog comfortable, we have to give them choices. We have to let them go to the bathroom where they want to. We can't make them wait. We can't make them want to do it where they don't want to go. So, just as we can't put a cat in a small metal box, we can't put a dog in a small cage where they can't go to the bathroom away from where they eat and drink, because that's what they want to do. Did she show you guys this picture? This one is so awesome. These are puppies. Puppies even know better. So they're not house trained by any sense. Like I'm not going to be like, "Ooh, get these awesome puppies that are house trained," but they know that they need to poop and go to the bathroom away from where they're sleeping and where they're eating. So I see it time and time again. This is another shelter I walk through. When we give dogs the option, they will go away from where they're sleeping and eating. Just lots of cool options for dog housing. And you know, we talk about sizing for cats. You know, we say that the cats, if it's compartmentalized, they need at least 9 square feet. If it's one big cage, you need 11. Communal housing, 18. For dogs, it's variable, right? Like a Chihuahua is a different size than this dog here. So there's no standards for size, but it needs to be compartmentalized, right? So things to think about there. Lots of options for dog beds. I love these. Have you guys seen these in shelters? Have you seen dogs that get these, the high-sided ones? You can feel like 6 Chihuahuas in one of those. It's great. And they'll curl up together, but it's awesome that you'll see, you know, when you walk through a shelter and that's where the dog is choosing to be. I think it's really appealing to people too, you know, to see a dog laying on a bed like this in a shelter. Seeing an empty run, I think is very off-putting to people. The dog kind of loses some of its personality and just attractiveness. You know what I'm saying? Like it's cold and it's not attractive to people. So people will donate beds. There's so many things you can use. So, okay, so we now know how to feed our animals and make them comfortable, right? We're not putting them in small metal boxes. So, freedom from fear and distress. Sadly, shelters are scary places, right, for animals. It's totally unfamiliar. The smells, the sounds, the people. It's inherently scary. So, what's the best we can do? We can give them tools to cope, right? Because they're in our shelter, it's scary. We need to help them cope with that. So, I thought these were really cute. These are actually from a boarding facility. And so we recognize it there, right? Like we drop our animals off. We're no longer with them. They may love to go there, but it's new, it's different. Again, new smells, new sounds, unfamiliar people. And when a dog goes to a shelter or a boarding facility, they don't know that you're the one coming back to get them. So as caretakers of these animals, we have to help them cope, again, the best that we can. Same for cats, if not more so for our cats. We need to realize what stresses them, minimize it, and then give them the tools to cope. Because how many times have you guys walked through shelters and seen animals that look like this? These animals are not coping, right? They do not have what they need to cope. Their needs are not being met. This freedom certainly is not being met. These animals are afraid, they are stressed. So we need to address it. So how do we do it? All cats. I don't care if it's the friendliest cat. I don't care if it's my cat who is a blood donor and actually thinks he's a dog. Still loves to hide. How many of you guys put a box down for your cat and instantly they're in it? Like, it's just fun, right? Like, it's new, it's fun, we like to hide, we like to come out. So all cats, I don't care how friendly they are, I don't care how scared they are, they need a place to hide. How many of you have worked in shelters who say, no, we're not giving cats a place to hide because then they're gonna hide and they're not gonna be adopted? Yeah.
I'm gonna say that just to make you mad.
What's that you're gonna say? Well, turns out we can dispel that myth. As Dr. Newberry always likes to say, she's like, aren't you a lot more willing to go somewhere when you know you can leave? Like, who wants to go, like, would you guys have come to me? I was like, okay, guess what? You're gonna sit here for 4 hours, and I'm gonna talk to you, and I'm locking the doors. You cannot leave, you have no choice. I don't care if you have to go to the bathroom. You're gonna sit here and you're gonna look at me for 4 hours. Who's gonna get cranky? Right? And who's gonna choose to do something that's probably not very nice? Right? Like, if we give a cat a choice, then they can choose, if they don't really want to interact with you, to go into their box. If we don't give them a box, what's their choice? To rip your face off. Right? Which choice do we want a cat to make? We want them to make the choice to hide. We need to give them that choice. And then, when they choose, they can come out and interact with us. So the study actually showed that it did not decrease their adoptability. It in fact did decrease their stress. And cats that had hiding boxes were adopted just as frequently as cats that didn't have them. So this study used the hide, perch, and go boxes. Are you guys familiar with those? The cool ones that have a perch and a hiding place, and then you can do a little bit of origami, and then they're a carrier. So, give cats hiding places. And if the cage is too small, as we've seen, but we're getting rid of those, right? So, but in the meantime, cover up part of it, right? This cat, see, she's choosing to go, but if she goes under here, she thinks she's hiding, right? So that works. If the hiding spot doesn't fit within the kennel, just cover part of the kennel, make it a hiding place. Some cats, cover the whole thing. Let them hide. They don't really ever want to choose to be out. So these are some ideas for dogs. The high-sided, there is, can you see a little chihuahua in there? He chose to hide under his bed. So lots of things. This is a cool one that Dr. Wagner made. This is an outside, you know, like to hide, a cute thing to put in your garden to hide your hose. That's what this is, and she carved a hole in the side. So he can go in there, and then when adopters or volunteers want to hang out with him, they can sit on top of it, and he can get on their lap, or he can lay up on top. So lots of options. This is me just covering part of a kennel. But for dogs who don't necessarily like to cover the whole thing, because guess what we teach them to do? And we've seen this at some shelters. Right, jump, right? Because they want to see, so they'll just, then we teach them to jump up and go over that. Not real appealing to adopters. So we leave part of it open, right? So they can look out over here. Also what, and Dr. Wader probably mentioned this, I think it's really important, is when we're designing kennels, we don't like the guillotine door to span the whole length of the kennel. Does that make sense? Like, it's better to just have a door in the middle, because then when they're on the backside, they can use part of the wall as a hiding place, and it creates a much more bigger separation. Whereas if you just have a door that spans the whole thing, it just basically seems like one big area. Does that make sense? So ideally, kennels are like this one, or the ones at Dade County, when you guys go over there and look at them, it's just a door in the middle. It's not the full width that's open. Okay, we're on to number 4. Freedom from pain, injury, and distress. So this is a lot where we play a role as veterinarians, right? We help come up with it. Infectious disease plans for any medical that we see. We make sure we give vaccines on intake. And then we have plans to deal with animals that come in already injured. So really important for this one, and especially if a shelter doesn't have a veterinarian on staff, they need to have a plan, right? Because animals are going to come in sick and injured. And if they come in healthy, it's our job to keep them that way, right? Because what happens if we don't? Sadly, a lot of times this, especially if we don't have a vet on staff, this has to become our outcome. Which is not to say that some animals coming into our shelter, that is not their best outcome. right? But if they come in healthy, we don't want this to be their outcome. And we don't want to get into this cycle, right? We don't want to have animals, we don't want to crowd ourselves so then they get stressed and then they get sick and then we get less adoptions. We don't want to feed into this. We want to actually reverse this. So it starts with us. It starts with us keeping our animals healthy as veterinarians. Okay, number 5, freedom to express normal behaviors. It's a long list, right? There are lots of things that animals like to do. And I think one thing we need to think about too is how long is it okay to not let animals do this, right? Like, especially in, so, like let's say for example, a feral cat, right? Like, simply by putting them in a shelter, we've pretty much taken away their ability. These are wild animals, right? We've pretty much taken away their ability to express any sort of normal behavior that they want to express, right? But if they come into our care, we hold them for a short amount of time, we sterilize them and we put them back, so healthier because now they're vaccinated and more robust because they're not going to make more cats, is it okay to limit this for a short period of time to give them a better outcome? And I don't know the answer. To me, it is okay. Ooh, sorry. But everyone has to decide that for themselves, right? Every shelter has to decide that for themselves. Like, is a few days not having this for a better outcome, is that okay? So just something to think about. But certainly for animals that are going to be with us long term, we need to find ways that we can let animals do as many natural things as they can. Why? Because it keeps them healthy, it keeps them moving towards the outcome that we want them to move towards. And this is where so much of our enrichment comes in, right? Like this is the fun stuff now we're going to get to talk about. It's how do we help animals do all of these things that they want to be doing. Okay, so back to the bad pictures. Does any of this meet any of our freedoms? No, right? So we're going to stop doing it. We're going to provide all these things. They're basics, but we need to do it. We need to provide the freedoms. It starts with housing because that's where they spend the majority of their time. So make sure that where you're working, where you're consulting with, where you're volunteering, that you have all these things. Just some fun pictures of housing that I've seen throughout my travels and working with shelters. This is actually one of our local shelters in Sacramento. You know, these are shower stalls. It's awesome. And now they've gone through and now all the shower stalls have portals. So every single cat in adoption gets 2 of these. We're still working on the shelves because as you can imagine, really fat cats don't fit on those narrow shelves very well. I've seen a few cats attempt it. So we're working on bigger shelves, but see they have vertical space. We can separate their food from where they go to the bathroom. The one thing that's not awesome is adopters can't interact with them very well. I think it would be fun if they could put some like cute paw print holes in these, so adopters could interact. Right now you just kind of have to slide your hand under it, but great housing, easy to clean. It's a shower stall. So my previous resident mate, this is her shelter, the Humane Society of Silicon Valley. All cats get their own house. And most of them have windows, they have pretty good natural light, but all the cats get their own room. Volunteers can go in there, potential adopters can go in and interact with the cats. So some fun ideas. Group rooms for cats. Again, these aren't huge, right? Couple cats that enjoy the company of other cats that live together. And something to think about too is on our adoption floor, we want to house cats in a variety of different ways, both to meet the cat's needs, but also to meet the adopter's needs, right? Because we all like different things when we go shopping, right? Some things are more attractive to others, and we need to recognize that. Some people can find rooms like this completely overwhelming, especially if there's multiple cats, but yet they find the perfect cat for them housed singly. So, and then some people are completely horrified by putting cats in cages, so then we want to display the cats like this. So again, our goal is to get the cats out, and dogs out. So all of the stuff we're doing, we also have to take that into consideration as well. This is San Francisco Animal Care and Control. They took some of their dog housing and made it for cats. So they closed the guillotine door, and they have nice cat housing. This one Not ideal because there is a dog on the other side, but what would you rather have? Hearing a dog or being stuck in a small metal box? Sometimes we have to make compromises, right? They chose that they would rather give their cats more room with the risk of exposing them to a barking dog. Again, not ideal, risk benefit. So get creative to get our cats out of small metal boxes. This is an awesome shelter. You guys should all come visit me in California. This is Field Haven. It's a cats only shelter. All the cats get indoor housing. Each one does. Some of them are group rooms for the cats that enjoy it, and some cats get their very own suite with an indoor-outdoor. This is the indoor portion here, and this is the outdoor portion here, and that's what it looks like. So they look like dog runs, but when you show up, it's full of cats. It's gorgeous. So when all you have is small, think about where else could you possibly house cats in your shelter. Start raising money, put in portals. Use elevated cat beds. Have you guys seen those? Our Shelter Medicine Club at Davis, just as an activity, if you guys want, they make those for shelters. They've applied for a couple of grants and gotten supplies, and they make them. And they get to deliver them to local shelters, and they're super popular. And if you have a cage like this, I want you to fill it with newspaper. You're allowed to use it as storage, and that is it. Dogs, sadly, we do see a lot of the same things for our cats. We see them for our dogs. None of which is appropriate. It makes us very, very sad when we see it. So we got to give our dogs choices, right? We need to give them room. That's the same little guy that you saw before. So now, before he was choosing to be inside his box, he's now choosing to be on top. Give the dogs choices to be inside or outside. These chairs are awesome. That chair is actually made of cement, so it's really easy to clean. It looks super cute, very attractive to adopters. These guys can either choose to be, they have like 3 choices of beds here, or they can be up in their chair. So, again, trying to meet the dog's needs to the best of their ability while they're in our care. And I would argue, we actually have a 6th freedom. So, who were the 5 freedoms written for? Farm animals. What was the outcome of a farm animal? Right. It was to kill them, right? And that was acceptable because that's why we were housing these animals. That's why we were caring for these animals. What's our goal as a shelter? Rehome them, right? Find them a new place to live. So we got to work on this 6th freedom, freedom from death. Okay? So just think about that. So I argue there's 5 plus 1. So just planting that seed that we actually have 6 freedoms when it comes to shelters. So stress, getting back to this, and coping, right? We need to recognize it. So we need to make sure our staff, everyone working for us, knows what a stressed animal looks like. Because you guys know what feigned sleep is, right? What cats do. They just sit there. It looks like they're sleeping, but if you watch them, they're not sleeping. I think they're plotting to take over the world, actually, as they sit there. But watch them. See how much a cat moves. Look at their fur. Is it just gross because they're not grooming? Like, no, let your staff know what they need to be looking for to recognize what a stressed animal looks like. And even stress as far as how they interact with the staff and how they interact with other animals. And then we need to help them cope with it. We need to reduce it to the best that we can. They're in a shelter, right? It's stressful. So we need to reduce it the best that we can, provide them the tools. And remember, healthy animals deal with it better. So our role as veterinarians is to keep them healthy, support their immune system, vaccinate them, and make sure that we reduce, just like in infectious diseases, we reduce the dose of their stress as much as we can. I thought this was fun. Ways to recognize what an animal's doing. Fun ways to train your staff. I'm sure have you guys seen this picture? This is my boss, Dr. Hurley, Sandra's good friend and colleague. When she was and she probably called herself a dog catcher. That's what she did before she became a veterinarian. What should she be doing with this cat as she's walking past a giant German Shepherd who's salivating? What could she have done? What's it?
Switch hands to kind of hide the cat.
Okay, and even better?
Cover the cage.
Yes, excellent. Find a different route, right? Like, did you have to walk by this this cage? You know, these. There could be what, a dozen animals in there. Yes, different route, and then you got to cover it, right? Like, what if we would have just put a towel over this cat? So still in a shelter, but it feels more protected, right? Than having this lovely dog look like it's going to have it for lunch. So we need to think about it in every single thing that we do. So housing, awesome. You know, we've got great ideas for that, but think about it. From the minute they come into our shelter, like, what can you do to help them cope? Because like I said, they're already in a shelter. It's stressful inherently. So it's just like vet school, it's stressful, right? Like, no one's gonna deny that. But you guys have ways you can cope, right? So think about it the same way. Don't set cats on the floor, right? Simple things like putting them on an elevated surface. Way better for the cat. No cat likes to be on the floor. Don't move a cat. Just moving a cat to another cage can cause their herpes to be like, woo, here I am. So the less you can move an animal, the better. So things to think about in everything that we do to help these guys. We need to do it with as minimal stress as possible. All right, so what is enrichment? So we're getting on to that. Any questions of basic stuff, meeting the 5 freedoms? I know I've thrown a lot at you guys. I'm fully aware. And now we're going to cover some fun stuff. You guys are all familiar with the document Standards of Care for Animal Shelters, the guidelines for standards of care. I know you've all read it. It's this next year nightstand, right? Good reading. And it's talked about in the guidelines. We're improving the environment and the care of our animals, right? This is the fun stuff that we get to do. We reduce the stress. We improve the well-being, both their physical and their mental. And we want to prevent the development of abnormal behaviors. Why? Because if they came in with normal behaviors, they deserve to keep those and find a new home. But this is my favorite. Enrichment should be given the same significance as other components of animal care, such as nutrition and veterinary care, and should not be considered optional. Okay? So just as we feed them and we clean them every day and we care for them, we have to enrich them and we have to meet their needs. Like, that is just one of my favorite statements ever. And if someone says we do not have time, you find time. Because there's lots of ways to accomplish it, right? This is great for volunteers. It doesn't need to be expensive. If you guys have worked in shelters where you've done some really cool programs, I would love to hear about them, especially if you have pictures. It's always fun to share programs that people are doing. So there's a lot of awesome stuff happening out there in shelters, and we want to share it. This is really a fun paper from a historical perspective. If you guys ever get a chance to read it, it's actually from the 92 from Northern Ireland. Tell me that most of you guys are older. This paper is, you guys are older than this paper, right? Okay. It's going to make me feel really, really old. But what they found is that animals did pretty well. Their behavior didn't decline that much in the first 7 days, which was awesome. But they even looked at what adopters looked for. So even back, you guys just read this paper from a really interesting standpoint. You know what they called owner surrenders? Unwanted. Which I thought was so fantastic. So they had stray and they had unwanted. And they didn't sugarcoat anything. They were like, they got 6 days and then they were, I'm not going to remember the word now, but they didn't use euthanized. I think it was like they were terminated or something. Like it's just really, really interesting from, and dogs were not adopted, they were bought. So it's just amazing, like the verbiage that was used back in 92 and how we've changed it now. So anyways, from a historical perspective, it's a fascinating paper. But it's also just interesting to think about. But what they found when they looked at, this was just photos that they showed people, is that if an animal was at the front of their cage, it was more likely that they'd be adopted. If they were not barking, if the cage was clean, people found the animal more attractive. The exact same animal, but in a clean cage versus a dirty cage. If they had a Kong, even if they weren't interacting with it, the animal was more likely to be bought. And then they found that people didn't, that they were much more likely to adopt an animal if they were an unwanted, if they were a surrendered animal versus a stray, which I thought was fascinating. So people just found those animals more attractive. So, and then have you guys seen this study? This was done not that long ago, within the last couple years, looking at what adopters go for. And so for dogs or for cats, behavior with people is what allowed people to choose their cats. Not surprisingly, kittens, they're cute. It was based on appearance. And then personality. And then for dogs, it was that some people like what their dogs look like, but it's their temperament, right? And it's how they interact with people on why they were chosen. And so why is this important? It's because it lets us prioritize our resources, right? Like if we know what adopters are looking for, so if we know what adopters are looking for and if we know what's best for the animals, then let's do enrichment that meets both those things, right? Like, let's provide an animal the ability to have a clean cage, right? You let them poop on the backside. So even if you don't have the staff to clean it every time an animal poops, at least the side that the adopters see is clean, right? And let's do enrichment programs that encourage animals to not bark. So let's meet their needs, right? So it's putting all this information together lets us know where we can put our limited resources. Okay, so let's think about what do our cats like to do, right? Our fifth freedom, making sure cats can express their normal behaviors, right? You guys think of anything else your cat likes to do that I've forgotten? You can think about it. Again, there's my cat, that's Blue. So, some fun ideas to help cats with their hunting. This is just a muffin tin, and the cats loved it. They could put ping pong balls in and move them around. This is just, every clinic's gonna have this. That's an empty box, disposable glove box. And there's just a ping pong ball inside of there. This cat sat there for 20 minutes. He was convinced he could get that ping pong ball out of there. So, this is just a little DVD player, and that's a spider that would move across the screen. The cat even would go behind here and look for it. So simple stuff, right? And change it up. Like that cat's not going to be engaged for days, but a couple of hours, right? Gives them something different to do. Cat grass, hide stuff in there, put treats in there. Let cats do what they want to do. Let them be cats. Grooming, super important for cats. And again, they need to have room to do it, right? What cat is going to groom themselves? What cat can groom themselves in the 2x2 boxes, right? They can't. So, and then let volunteers groom the cats too, as long as the cat's amenable, obviously. Not for every cat. Scratching, cats love to scratch. It's a very natural, normal behavior. Even cats that are declawed still like to scratch. So have you guys seen the stretch and scratches? They're like $1 when you buy them in bulk. They're these awesome, it's just cardboard, this one put together, and you can hang them on the door. You can move it with the cat, you can send it home with the cat. Or you can have people make them or donate them. And we have stuff now, we have products that allow us to disinfect those too, so it shouldn't scare us. But we need to give cats enough room and the ability to scratch. Toys, lots of things that cats consider toys. Like, how many of your cats play with hair ties? Right? Like, cats consider so many things toys, which is awesome. And cats do like consistency. So, you know, when we clean cats, we want to just do spot cleaning. We want to leave them their own bedding as much as we can, because it's stressful for a cat to have something new every day. So leave some toys the same, but cats also love novel things. So this shelter, this was their toy list. So every day the cats got something different. It's not expensive. Paper towel rolls, toilet paper rolls, corks from wine. These are just yogurt containers, and we cut a few holes in them and put cat treats in. And this is, have you guys seen the new, it's just duct tape that has patterns on it. Someone's come out with patterned duct tape. So it looks cute to adopters, right? I mean, the cat could care less what the duct tape looks like. But it's cute, right? If you see this hang, and then the cat, it's like a piñata. The cats can hit it and the treats come out. This is easy cheese and tuna in a toilet paper roll, which I realize is completely disgusting. But the cats think it's awesome, right? And it's about them, not us. So Give them a toilet paper tube with some fun stuff in it. This is a way to make, these were little catnip toys. So it was just cut up paper towel rolls that were folded and had catnip in them. So, and a 4-step thing for volunteers on how to make them. So, it's not expensive, it's fun, and it's something new for the cats who are, don't have a lot going on every day in their life. You can click or train a cat, don't let anyone tell you you can't. The shelter was really big on it, and if you have 6 black cats in your shelter, and you teach them to high five, that makes them different, right? That makes them not just another black cat. That teaches them to be the black cat that can do a high five. That gets them adopted. That's cool, right? So think of things that make your adult black cat different than everyone else's black cat, and it gets them out. So I love training cats. I am not good at it. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I try, and when you're successful, it's awesome. It's also a good way to get cats trained to come to the front of their kennel, because interacting with people, again, remember, that's what people like. So train cats to do that. Give them outside time as much as you can. Outside, or at least just out of their cage. This is the Oakland Animal Care and Control. They have a catio. So volunteers can take the cats outside. It's covered. You can't see it because it's sunny outside. But it's covered over the top too, so it's a safe place for cats. I think they take rabbits out there too, not at the same time. And this was at the kitten nursery in Berkeley. So they gave kittens, the older kittens, out of cage time as well. So each litter of kittens had their own little out of cage space time that they could go into. So awesome if cats can be in larger rooms, either with other cats or by themselves. And if you can't, at least give them some part of their day where they're out of their cages. Lots of ways you can play with cats. So many fun toys out there. And bubbles. Have you guys ever blown bubbles for your cat? And, non-toxic, so we're good. This was a sign that I saw in a shelter, and it made me really sad. Okay, if the cat is in the ICU, fine. But if a cat just has a little bit of upper respiratory, they still need love, they still need attention. You can still interact with them. Do these guys last, obviously? But this is what one shelter did. They just created a separate out-of-cage space time that was easy to disinfect for their cats that were sick. So, still okay, you still should interact with the cats that are fighting off a little bug. Awesome. Dogs. These might all be mine. Because I had to throw them in there and it makes me happy. Might be, they might not be too. Eating, such a fun thing for dogs, right? So let's give them enrichment then. This shelter just blew me away. Okay, so they're not a giant shelter. I will give you that. So this is not realistic for every shelter. But look at this. Every single dog has their name written on their bowl to address their enrichment needs through their meal. So this is just one of the bowls turned upside down to slow the dog down from eating. I thought that was brilliant. We're really slowing this guy down and putting it in a Kong. And then it looks like we have some special diets for some other guys. So what can you do with feeding to make it more exciting? Chewing is, there was just a blog that Emily Weiss did, if you guys want to look it up on ASPCA Pro, the importance of chewing for dogs and how much they need to do it and different things you can give them. Not everything has to be expensive, and you can reuse these. You can wash this after the dog goes home. So, and then these are just old plastic bottles that we filled with fun treats. You need a little bit more supervision with these to make sure the dog doesn't eat the bottle, but affordable, right? You do it for an hour in an afternoon. Kongs are awesome. I think that's Dade County, actually. They have a whole little mix they do, and then they freeze them for the dogs. Clearly enjoying it. Toys, tons of ideas for toys. I go to the thrift store and buy really inexpensive stuffed animals. I let them rip them up. This is a fire hose. Some shelters even make their own toys out of fire hoses, like the police department or the fire department will donate old hoses and they make them. John Powless here in town used to donate old tennis balls to the shelters because apparently tennis players like their balls to bounce a certain way, and once they don't do that, they want to get rid of them. Dogs don't care, right? Use the old tennis balls. These are really fun, and I have a how to make these toy dog dispensers. They're really inexpensive, great project for Eagle Scouts. It's just a PVC pipe cut and then 2 different ends on it. This comes off and you can put food in there. So what this shelter does is afternoon feeding, everyone gets it out of this. So it's not just in a bowl. So feeding time goes from 5 minutes to a half an hour, right? It's a little bit more fun. It lets them hunt for it. This dog was actually, his meal is in that box of toys. Because he was a very excitable dog who had a lot of energy, and they wanted to slow him down. So his food just got dumped into that, and you could find it. He made a giant mess, but who cares? He had a great time, right? And then they'd put all the toys back in, and they did it the next day. So this is just these are paper bags full of treats. The dogs get to destroy them, it's inexpensive, and they're happy. So getting creative. Okay, now I'm officially out of time. The last one I want to talk about, though, is this. Have you guys seen this at Dane County? One of my all-time favorite programs. It's affordable, and your bang for your buck is awesome. It's every time you walk by a kennel, and this is staff, volunteers, potential adopters, if a dog is showing you desirable behavior, right? So some people call it 4 on the floor, they're just standing there not barking. Some dogs will even give you a sit, just depending on how appeasing they want to be. You give them a treat. So how awesome is that for an adopter when they walk up, they see a dog that either sits or just stands there quietly as opposed to like jumping up and begging for attention, right? Awesome, awesome training tool. Some shelters even do it where this is how they get their afternoon meal, or sometimes their whole meal. It comes to them like this. So they know, I'm doing good things come to me. It's an easy training program, right? And so appropriate signage and a bucket on the side of a cage gets you this program. Like, it's awesome. And when you walk into shelters that do this as opposed to shelters that don't do this, the noise level is amazing. The difference between them, it's awesome. And so, and then like every time the dog goes for a walk, like they know when a volunteer is coming, they know that they sit instead of being all crazy. Again, way more attractive to adopters, way more attractive to the volunteers. Because wouldn't you rather walk a dog, go in and interact with them if they're sitting there nicely, at least standing there, as opposed to like trying to maul you, even if it's in a friendly way? So, if all shelters had portals and all shelters had this program, I might retire. Okay, any questions? I think I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I'm happy to share this with anyone. There's more stuff in here, but I know you have places to be, so. Good?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.